Hello, good people. Welcome to our show. Hello, bad people. Welcome to our show. Hello, guys. Welcome. I don't care you're good, bad. I only care about the knowledge that you can get on this podcast. Today we have an interesting topic about how to retain your knowledge because you can consume a lot of content, read books, listen to podcasts, read blog posts, watch YouTube videos, many different types of content, but it's hard to remember what you've learned. That is why I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Mickey Mellen. How are you?
Hey, doing good. Happy to be here again. Good to see you.
Yeah, big pleasure. You spoke twice on my podcast. I am blessed to learn from you. I love this experience, Mickey, but I have new listeners. So remind about yourself, background, and anything that can help to learn more about you.
Sure. So I run a digital agency. I've had that for about 14 years with a partner. I think for today's show, though, it matters more that I also blog every day. So I've been a daily blogger for about 3 years and off and on for a lot longer than that. So I read a lot and learn a lot and forget a lot. And so that's kind of, I've been trying to solve that. And that's why I think we're going to dig into that a bit today. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I agree. According to some studies, people can forget 50% of all information in the first hour.
Wow.
Another
Yeah.
50% in a few hours, probably a few days. I can
Yeah.
forget fast about new
Oh, yeah.
skills.
Same.
And I remember I like to learn from the best. And once I learned about Bill Gates, and he shares that he usually makes notes when he reads books. He makes notes to remind everything that
Yep.
he learned. So, Mickey, tell where to start because I know it's important to learn to update what you have, but how to think more about quality of getting skills than to get quantity because I often get the question how many books can I read, how many blog posts I can read, and similar questions. But I think it's more important what you can remember from these resources. So tell what to do first.
For sure. So I think a big thing is to revisit the same content over and over. A lot of this came from me from a podcast called Founders. I don't know if you ever listened to that, but David Senra, he reads biographies of famous people over time, and gives a podcast about it. But in one of his shows, he was talking about any given quote because he can remember quotes off the top of his head. He seems like he can remember everything so easily. And he said, I can't. I'm not good at remembering things. But the difference is he reads the biography and takes some notes, and then he rereads his notes and puts them into podcast notes, then rereads it, before the podcast, reads it on the podcast. Like by the time he does his podcast about a book, he's read any given quote 5 or 6 times. And that's what helps with the stick is just going into it over and over. So the podcast is amazing for us. We get to listen to his podcast. It's very insightful and helpful, but man, it's 100 times better for him because he's actually digging into the stuff and going through it over and over and over again. So I've tried to do that where there's tools to take your notes automatically out of Kindle and put them in Notion automatically. But the automatic is the killer. Like if I do it manually, I'm having to revisit those notes and touch them more and move them. And I think slowing down has been the biggest thing that's helped me.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, love it, love it. Mickey, I wanna ask about finding the balance between learning and acting. It's important to get
Mm-hmm.
new skills, to learn, but I found when people overlearn, when you learn a lot more than act. But most great entrepreneurs, bloggers, journalists, they usually act more. For example, Neil Patel, Rand Fishkin, they are practitioners. They don't
Mm-hmm.
read a lot of SEO news and something like this. So they usually practice, act. Can you tell how to find this balance between learning and practice?
I think for almost everyone, more practicing than we're doing. I think we all try to do too much learning and not enough practicing. And so for me, I mentioned I blog every day. I do it mostly for me. I hope people get value out of it, but it's a way for me to revisit notes, revisit podcasts, revisit books, and just dig into that content again. And that's sort of the practicing. I think a lot of people will journal every day. And if you journal every day, that's fantastic. But journaling, you can get a little lazy in that you can put your notes down and leave it. But for a blog post, I have to write it and then I'll kind of refine it and reread it and reword things and try to get it simplified. And the act of doing all that really helps retain the knowledge so much more. And so that's been a huge change in my life is doing that to learn that knowledge, but also forcing myself to keep reading more and learning more to have something to say the next day. Because it's hard to do it day after day after day and then to dig that deep into it. But it's been fantastic.
Yeah, nice, nice. Uh, Let's talk about making notes. Can you tell how often to do it? For example, if I read a new book, how often it's better to procrastinate, to stop reading and make notes? Because I think it depends, of course. But anyway, any tips how to do it right?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, you could read a book or use Kindle. I use the Kindle Scribe, which is kind of nice. It's the new big Kindle with the pen, so I can like sort of make notes as I'm going. Generally, I just highlight. I'll say, "Hey, this is an important thing. I think I know what I'm going to talk about with this later," so I'll just highlight it. But usually, I'll put a note or two because I'll go back to highlight sometimes. And be like, "Why did I highlight that? I don't remember now." So I've learned over time to highlight something and put a few notes about why I highlighted it. But I think the more you do, the better. And again, I think the key is afterward is revisiting those notes and not just like I did the notes, I took them and I can put them in a drawer and go away. Cause then, yeah, you're going to forget them. You're going to forget the 50% real quick, but if you can take it back out and revisit them, that's good. Again, in my case, I'll see the highlights. Say, oh, that was a great quote. He said, that's why. Oh, and that's why I took it. My note will sort of remind me why I highlighted it. And then I'll try to unpack it further and see how it matters in my life and how to, like you said, put it into practice. But if you can take that many steps, you're going to touch that note so many times already. It's going to help really solidify it for you.
Yeah. Once I listened to audio podcast with Seth Godin, and Gary Vaynerchuk asked him questions, and Seth Godin said that he usually reads a few books a day. A few books a day. For someone, it's hard to read one book a week.
Right.
But Seth Godin, yeah, that is why he's one of the best marketers ever. But he can read a few books for an hour. I mean,
Wow.
like he spends hour a day to read a few books. I can't imagine how to do it.
Yeah.
That is why Seth Godin is much better than me. But anyway, can you tell? Is it good idea to do something similar to Seth Godin? Because I'm pretty sure Seth Godin has experience, knowledge, how to do it right. But for most listeners, including me, it's hard. It's hard. So tell about you mentioned sometimes you can revisit to reread. So can you tell how to do it right? I mean, like to find the balance between the best, like Seth Godin, probably Bill Gates, I don't know, and and to find the best ratio that works for you.
Gotcha. So yeah, it does vary a lot. Seth Godin is the reason I blog every day because he says you should be doing this every day. It'll make you better, and it certainly has. So that came from him. I think going back to David Senra, Founders, he rereads a book quite a bit. He'll come back to a book. He has a few books he does in his podcast. Like every 50 episodes, he'll come back to this great book because it was so good. And he wants to get back into it again. So it's not reading more books, but reading the books that are great deeper. And then Bill Gates, I know one of the things he does is he takes a retreat every year for a week or two where he just goes off by himself with a stack of books and just pours through them. And I think that sounds pretty fantastic, although it's not feasible for most of us. It's still an interesting angle to go. Like I worry with the Seth Godin thing, and certainly Seth pulls it off. I think part of it too is this is what Seth does for a living. Most of us are doing this on the side of another job. I'm running an agency. There's different things. Seth's whole job is to read and write. So it gives you more time for that. But I worry trying to do that many books, I would just forget. I would forget too much. I think I need to slow down and reread and dig deeper into the books I read so I don't forget things. It's when I try to just read more books because that's better. That's when I forget all of it because it's too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we can learn from Seth Godin. We can learn from many great experts. But as you mentioned, Seth has one occupation. I mean, like read and write. Remember, many great authors can tell if you want to become the best, you need to do two things in writing. To write and read a lot, So, but when you have many other things to do, as I usually do, to handle my team, to manage many processes, to speak with my clients, it's hard. It's really hard. So it's your way, and you need to find something that makes you happy. For me, it's more important to enjoy the process. Mickey, I want to ask about priorities. When I get new content, valuable content, I want to do many things. Almost everything that I've learned from new content, from blog posts, from a book. But I know I have only two hands, 24 hours a day, and many other things that I keep doing every single day. So can you tell how to prioritize things? Okay, we can get many great ideas, 1,000 great ideas, but we can't implement 80% of them. So tell how you choose priorities and advise us to do the same?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say part of it is finding the right books to read that have the priorities I'm going to follow through on. So if I read a book about how to make a great car dealership, like I might get some lessons from that. There's nothing I can implement from it. Whereas I read more about how to be a great marketer or a great leader, there's tactical tips I can use right away. So I think making it easier to use the tips is important. And then I think the other side is just if you can take some of those lessons, again, going back to founders, I don't want to keep talking about him, but he just talks about, entrepreneurs from the past and lessons you can learn from Henry Ford and others. Like it's the lessons you learn about how they did things that you can maybe implement. It's fantastic, but it is harder to take action on those things. So you have to think through them, how they would apply to you, where the books I'm best at taking action and say, here's how to be a better leader. You should do this with your team. And I say, oh, I should do that with my team. Let's go. Because it's very easy to do. Whereas if I get a little more abstract, it's interesting. I learn a lot of neat things, but it's harder to actually make use of them because it's a few steps away from where I am.
Yeah, valuable. Mickey, let's talk about discipline. When I speak with people, they need to do many things like to take kids to the school, go to the doctor,
Mhm.
to implement many tasks in their jobs. And yeah, I'm stick with that as well. And I understand I can't do anything. And sometimes when you need to do something, it distracts from learning. Can you tell how to find this discipline, consistency of learning something and be effective with that?
Sure. I think we both do the same thing. You've been very disciplined with this podcast, and I think because it's not a choice. You don't say, I wonder if I should do a show. Like, no, you have to do another one. That's why I blog every day. I think ideally, if I could blog 3 times a week, that'd be great. But I can't blog 3 times a week because it would become, well, I don't have to do it today. I guess I could hold it till tomorrow. And it just kind of falls apart. So if I do it every day, though, I know it has to be done every day. And that adds that, for me at least, builds the rest of the discipline. Because if I know I have to write tomorrow, I better have some ideas. If I want some ideas, I better get some more reading done. And so it kind of forces me to read more in order to do that, to do it every day. So I know some folks, like I have a friend that works out 3 times a week and he's in great shape. He's fantastic. I can't work out 3 times a week because, again, I'm tired today. I'll push it tomorrow. So I work out every weekday. Like it's just, it has to be Monday through Friday is when I do that. And, without giving the option, that forces the discipline and makes me work my schedule around it. But easier said than done. But for me, yeah, just making it something I do, just like you do with this podcast. You don't do this when you feel like it. You do it on a consistent basis. And that's just what it is. And for me, that's worked very, very well. And again, blogging every day is ridiculous and crazy, but it's solved it for me because, again, that task has forced me to do all the other things around it, to listen to more podcasts, to read more books, to read articles, and find more data for things I can talk about.
Yeah. Nice, awesome. Mickey, let's talk about finding the right format. For example, it's interesting. People usually learn best practices, what to do to read books, to listen to audio podcasts, I don't know, to watch YouTube videos. But I found some great experts, for example, Gary Vee. He shares many times that he doesn't read books. So he ignores this format, but he reads a lot of comments. So he opens social media accounts, and he has 10 million followers almost on all accounts. But
Right.
and he reads comments. It's even hard to read comments on your social media posts when you have this recognition like Gary Vee. I spoke with Ferry Kazoni. He has this big PR agency in UK, one of the biggest, and he spoke on conference when CEO of Google asked him to speak on this Google conference, big conference, and he told me he watches YouTube videos. He ignores many formats. He watches many videos every single day to learn from them. And I think it's a good idea to find your loving format. And I don't like when someone can tell you need to read books. If you dislike this format, you can find other formats like Gary Vee, like Ferry Kazoni, like many others. Can you tell how to do it? How to brainstorm ideas to find one format or a few formats that, I don't know, when you can enjoy your time by learning.
I think
something.
you just nailed it. The one you can enjoy your time. If you hate reading, it'd be silly to do that. Or if you're distracted by videos, don't do that. I think what you can do is find ways to follow other great content from the content you're following now. So a lot of the books I read, they'll reference other authors. I'll say, ooh, he mentioned this great quote from this guy. I'm going to go read his book now that he referenced. And when I read that one, he'll talk about others and kind of follow the train. Same goes for YouTube videos. If you have a great YouTube video that's teaching you a lot, he's going to reference other sources and say, I got this from this study. Go read the study. Or I got this from this other video. Or you kind of follow the train once you find the right kind of format. But yeah, I agree that there's one that's not better than the other. I mean, I'm thinking books for me is way up there, but you could read articles, you could read blog posts, you could watch YouTube videos, you could listen to podcasts, you could, I mean, heck, you can learn a lot on TikTok if you get the right algorithm going. Gary Vee's going to pop up on there all the time and teach you things, and if you like it the right way, you're going to get more insights and stuff from there. So I don't think there's a right way to do it. It's just having the way to capture. For me, books make it easy to capture that knowledge in the form of notes and put it in. But if you can take notes properly while listening to a podcast and do something with them, then cool, go for it.
Let's talk about making notes properly. I make a lot of notes, and some sometimes it's hard even to read all of them because so many notes. I don't know why I collect all of them because I usually prioritize, but I keep doing them. Probably I can get back, brainstorm all these notes. Can you tell how to do it properly? You mentioned to make properly. Probably can help me as well, to make these notes properly.
I think a couple things. One, if you can put it in your own words, that'll help a lot. If you can take a quote and say, here's what it means to me, here's how it matters, a better note will help. I use other tools like Readwise. I don't know if you use Readwise. Again, this goes back to reading specifically, but there's probably other tools where it takes all the highlights and gives me a quiz every day. Not a quiz, but just kind of resurfaces highlights. So I can see those notes and highlights come back in front of me. And I use other tools like I think I talked on the last show about Anki, Anki. It's a memory app. And so I'll take other notes and quotes. And I really want to remember this thing. I'll put it in Anki so that way it'll come up in my reviews every couple of days saying, hey, don't forget this thing. It'll force it to come back. So I think part of it is writing better notes, writing better atomic notes. There's smaller pieces of why this matters. And I'm bad about that. I'll have a lot of, if you look at the notes for books I read, there's a lot of quotes from the book and a few notes from me. And I need to have more notes from me. Like really any quote, if quote's worth saving, it should be worth saying, hey, here's why this quote matters. Here's how I could implement it. Here's it in my own words. And I don't do that well enough, but that's a good note. But then again, I think the real key is resurfacing that note frequently so you see it, because the best note in the world is useless if it's buried in page 87 of your Evernote,
Yeah, I use Keep Google, this tool. I don't know why. Yeah, I decided to choose this tool. Free, simple to make notes. Works on
it's
all
a good little tool.
Yeah,
I use that for fleeting notes. So if I have ideas, I'll put them in Google Keep, but then I try to process them out. I use Obsidian for most of my notes. I'll take them out. But Google Keep is so easy to put stuff into. And so I throw stuff in it all the time with my voice or from the car or wherever. And then I try to then take it back out and say, okay, what do I want to do with this note? I want to put it in my notes, or I want to sometimes reminders to put something on the calendar. But yeah, Google Keep is a fantastic, simple way to take notes.
Yeah, simple. I love simplicity.
Yeah.
Mickey, I want to ask about transferring data to your clients. According to some studies, popular tweets, that customers usually implement 40% of all recommendations. So, for example, basically, if they pay you like $10,000, 6,000 of them are wasted because customers have no time, busy, other priorities. Can you tell how to retain knowledge to your customers? I mean, like if you want to teach someone, I remember this great quote from Bernard Shaw probably, and he said, if you want to teach someone, you can't teach. Because I think if someone wants to learn, you can teach someone,
right?
But what about customers? I think if they pay money, they want to learn, but they are busy as well. So any tips about that, how to transfer data to customers?
Yeah, that was a great quote about, if someone wants to learn, they will. I think for us, for our customers, we, again, do marketing services. Most of what we do is we actually execute it as well. So there's no need to transfer that knowledge to them necessarily, because that would be tricky to do. I think the key is to get it from whatever I read a great thing in a book, all the way through to my team to execute for that customer. And there's still like 4 or 5 steps there that need to happen, but it's really, and that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out now is I have all these ideas. I want to try to distill it down to just a few to talk to the team about every week. And because I don't want to come and say, okay, guys, here's what I learned this week. Sit down for an hour and a half and let's go through all these blog posts. Like that would not do anything, but getting down to like, hey, here's this one thing we really should be doing on Instagram. If we do this technique, it's going to work better. Or if we start blogging this way, or, just finding that one thing to do can really help. But yeah, to the customer, we try to make less for, at least in our case, less for them to learn. It's more about us executing on their behalf. So just convincing that what we're doing is a good thing, and then hopefully they get closer to the full value for what they're paying. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, let's talk more about that. It's interesting because I think I remember when I help my customers to do almost everything, to create content, to develop content, to promote. But it's hard today
Mhm.
when you need to consider EEAT, I mean, like experience, expert, authority, trust,
Yep.
parameters from Google. And I remember when I had a team of copywriters who wrote about anything. So I gave them tasks like to write about weight loss, about finance. They're all Google ranked.
Right.
Today, I fired all this team. Okay, yeah, Google helped me to do it, and I cooperate with experts who can write great content. For example, we usually outsource writers from Forbes, Investopedia, great resources, because I know these people can.
Mhm.
And it's not only to know, to have skills about specific niche. It's more about to know how to write as well. So
Yep.
if you can write but have no skills, you can succeed. If you have skills but can't write, you can't succeed. You need to have both. Tell your methods. If you help customers to do almost everything, how you outsource such people, content creators, and yeah, and simplify your customers' lives.
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure to outsource that. The biggest thing we do is before we start a project, we do a pretty robust messaging strategy, kind of on the building a story brand model. I'm sure you're familiar with Donna Miller's
Mhm.
work there. So we do a lot of that. So that way, when we talk to a copywriter to outsource, say, here's the topic we need, but here's a whole document all about this customer, what matters, what their customers look like, and giving them more background on what's happening so they can do it. And that gives them most of the knowledge they'll need for it. As for people that are writers versus, good writers or bad writers, I mean, I think repetition is king. I think Seth Godin has talked about the class building clay pots, where he had half the class build as many pots as they could, and had the other class build one amazing pot. It was their main goal, just build one. But the ones that did more pots ended up making better ones because they just did it over and over and messed up and found mistakes and had issues and kept working through it. And I think writing's the same way. Like, just the more you do it, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to have failures, you're going to have successes, but just keep going, keep going, keep going. And you're going to get better and better. And again, that's why I write every day. If you go look at my
Yeah,
blog, you're going to say a lot of those posts are garbage, and I'm sure they are, but hopefully there's some good ones in there too, because I keep doing it and hopefully getting better over time. So yeah, I think that
yeah.
sort of answers both halves of that question, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah. You mentioned about failing. For me, I can't count 80% of all my failures. I made a lot of mistakes. I keep doing them. Especially in marketing, when you learn something new, you need to do mistakes. I don't know how to go ahead without mistakes, because you can learn from best practices, generic information, then case studies. Then you need to go ahead to implement. And for example, when I started PR campaigns, I wrote a bunch of press releases, a lot of press releases. I pitched all of them, and I got zero mentions, zero links, nothing. Then I learned how it works. After doing a lot of mistakes, I learned. And today I have specialists who can write great press release, and I have specialists who can pitch them.
Mhm.
After combining these processes, we got mentions on CNN, Business Insider, many great resources.
Awesome.
Yeah, because of failing. I never can do like this without failure. Can you tell about failing? Because it's interesting. Many content creators stop because of failures. If I remember correctly, like uh, podcasters usually don't record the I don't remember, like more than 8 episodes of podcast, because they can't get results after 8 episodes. I don't know how to do it. If you ask me, I recorded plus 600 episodes to figure out how it works.
Yeah.
And I remember Mr. Beast said about that, you need to film 100 bad videos. If you
Yep.
can't film 100 bad videos, you can't be great with that. You need to fail many times. You need to improve a little bit. So tell about failing in marketing. How to be patient with your results and go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Beast is a great example because his early stuff is horrible, but he just kept going and trying and test. Even now, he just tests new things, and some work and some don't. I think Seth Godin, going back to him, his book The Dip talks about this a lot. Where anything you're trying to do, it's going to start out great. Maybe it's going to have a slow period, and you have to figure out, is that slow period just the dip that I need to fight through and be, so many podcasters bail out before 8 episodes, but if you fight through, suddenly you're in rare territory and you can really soar. Or is this just a bad idea that's not going to work and we should bail right away? And Yeah, if you haven't read The Dip, it's like an hour-long read. It's a very short book. It's great read. Talks about that. And then I guess related is Annie Duke, her book Quit, knowing when to quit and when to persevere. She talks about that a lot too. And in her case, she talks about two things really. One is great poker players actually quit more often than amateurs. She says amateurs stay in when they get their cards. They stay in 50% of the time. Professionals stay in like 20% of the time. They fold
Yeah.
way more often because they know when to quit and get on to something better. But at the same time, it's not, sometimes it's worth pushing through. Her other thing she talks a lot about is results versus processes. If you try something and it fails, maybe it was still a good decision and it just happened to fail. She talks about if you were dealt a hand in poker with two aces and you ended up losing the hand somehow, you can't take that as a lesson and say, well, next time I get two aces, I'm just going to fold because that's not any good. Like, no, that's not the lesson here. You want to, you got to understand the decisions versus outcomes. And so it's a tough balance to know when to push through, because sometimes people do 6 episodes of the podcast and it's not very good and they probably should give up. But most of the time they just see it's not the numbers I want, so I'm going to quit. But if you push through to episode 10, 20, 600 like you have, the results will start speaking for themselves if you really get through that. But The Dip from Seth Godin is a fantastic way to look at that.
Yeah, love it, awesome. And for me, the most important thing what you can do is to enjoy the process. If you don't enjoy, you don't need to touch something that can stop you. It's not about sacrificing your time. You don't need to suffer. If you do something, you don't need to suffer. If you suffer, leave it. And I quit a few projects because of having this feeling. Once I started one big project because I got the feeling that we can fill the gap in market, and we wasted a lot of resources. I hired a big team. We spent so much time with this project, but at that time I hated Monday. I loved Friday, and I got it. No way, I can't go ahead like this. I need to stop. I need to finish because it's suffering, and I don't see any wrong with that. If you give up, if you need to give up. If you hate it, if you made the wrong choice, we don't know if something will bring. I don't know, love, enjoyment. But if you can't, just leave it, and you will never regret. 70% of people hate their jobs. 70% of people, it's a lot.
That's
you
crazy. Yes.
Yeah, and you need to enjoy. If you enjoy, I like playing basketball. I can play basketball all the time. Nobody pays for my hobby. Nobody. But it doesn't stop me to play basketball, to spend time outside. So, yeah, you need to find. Can you tell how to brainstorm these ideas? Because I still have many students who don't know what to do, where to go. I get a lot of questions about that. I usually tell them, okay, find what you enjoy. But some people can't. They can't find. Can you tell how to find these ideas?
That's tough because it's not always the right answer either. Like, you enjoy basketball, but you're not going to be a professional. So if you said do what you enjoy, you would be doing that and you'd be living in the streets. So, you got to sometimes do things you don't enjoy as much, but I think the less pain, the better. So find multiple things you enjoy and see which one actually can be a career and go that way. But it's hard to find. And that's where I like listening to lots of podcasts and stories about entrepreneurs that came before, because you can hear what they tried, what they failed, and how they found their way. And different people find it different ways. So the more stories you can read and learn about those folks, the more you might say, that sounds like me. I'm going to do it like Steve Jobs did, or, I'm going to find the path like someone else, whereas other stories may not resonate as much. So learning about those that came before us will often give you a light for your path a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Can you tell about focusing? What I see when people try to do a lot of things, including me. I'm bad with that. I'm trying to focus, but sometimes I can't leave some money on the table. I'm trying to take it, and it's a big mistake because if someone focuses, like Ferry Kazoni, he spent like 8 years with PR without great results, just mediocre results, but he paid attention only to PR, and today he earns millions, with PR. And because of focusing, he didn't touch any other marketing. He decided to do only PR. Can you tell about your methods of focusing on some specific?
Gotcha. So you said focus. I was thinking short-term focus, but you're talking more long-term. I think Gary Vee's a good example of that too,
Yeah.
where again, you say he doesn't read much, but I mean, he focused on just the wine library for years and years and years. It feels kind of to me kind of like Mr. Beast, where his early videos were just hilariously bad, but he kept at it and kept improving and kept getting better and just stuck with it over time, but had his focus. I'm not the kind of guy that wants to focus like that, which I think is probably a detriment. I think the most successful people do really focus in, but I like to learn about lots of different things to help with wider marketing. So I'm maybe not the best person to talk about focus just because that's not something I strive for, but I can certainly point to people that do focus. I mean, again, the Gary V's, Mr. Beast, the Seth, all the guys we've talked about on this podcast, heck, even founders with David. And that's all this guy does is read biographies and do a podcast about it. And it's fantastic because that's all he does. He focuses on that. So those that can focus can be great, but some people, it kind of drives you nuts a little bit too. So I like to have the wider variety for myself, knowing that it's probably costing me some money somewhere, because if you can really go deep and be the expert, there's a lot to be found there. But yeah, you got to decide you really want that, and it's the right place to focus. Again, if you focus all on basketball, you would have been in big trouble. So I kind of hedge my bets a little bit too. I mean, you hear that if you read the biographies of these folks, they've all failed a lot of times because they went all in on something and that wasn't the right thing, and so they were toast. They went bankrupt because they had nothing else to follow. But then they found something else and focused and went all in it and went bankrupt again, and focused and went all in and finally hit it big that time. And I'm not willing to go through the pain of multiple bankruptcies to get where I want to get. But some people do, and they're the ones that tend to really come out on top.
Yeah, I was there. I was bankrupt 2 times, Yeah, but
now you have 600 episodes here, so there you go. Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, the first time I was bankrupt in 2008 because I had a financial company, and when the world crisis came to the market, I lost my company for 2 months. Everything. Wow. I invested a lot of money. I earned a lot of money at the time. Yeah, it's hard to to tell about that, but I got great experience. I got great experience how to overcome. No, today I'm good with that. I'm blessed because I have 2 hands, 2 legs. I can go ahead. It doesn't matter what happened. You can go ahead. You can be bankrupt, but never stop. Just go ahead. And I earned a lot of money and invested all of them. The biggest problem, I didn't have experience at that time to save some money. I decided to go all in, and that was a big mistake because I could expect everything except the world crisis.
Right, so maybe it wasn't a mistake. Again, that's Annie Duke with the decision versus the outcome. It was probably maybe a good decision to go all in, and the outcome just didn't work because you didn't see that coming. But looking at the data you had when you started, it might have been a good decision. So you got to take the right lessons from it. Like in our case,
expensive lesson.
Yeah, for sure. Like in our case with agencies, web agencies tend to go one of two ways. They grow real fast and real lean and try to get huge and sell for millions, or they stay smaller and lean like us and just try to have a good, healthy lifestyle. So we're the latter of that. I mean, we're 14 years in and we're a team of 9. We've grown very slowly on purpose, but we make healthy profit margins and we're all happy. We make good money and do great, but we're never going to sell for $20 million. And that's okay. The other side is to go real lean, hire as much as you can, stay right on the edge of going out of business, but then explode to be huge and make millions. And you got to choose what you want. And Allie and I, with our business, both have chosen very deliberately. Let's go slow and steady, just make good profits and, have a good time and not stress ourselves out. But also, we're not going to get the $20 million payday either. And we're okay with that because we're happy with where we are now. But other people aren't. They want to go for it. And if you want to, go for it, man. It's great.
Yeah. You remind me, Jack Ma, Chinese billionaire. And
founder of a billionaire. All right, good. I like
that. Yeah. And he is co-founder of Alibaba in China. And he told when he grew, he got more headache. If you grew more people, bigger team, more projects, you have more headache. And I don't know how to envy Elon Musk. He can live in some places, to spend time all time in the office. He's fat, For me, it's better to go basketball.
Exactly, yeah.
To enjoy my life. Yeah, I think Elon Musk is happy with something that he has. That's okay, it's his choice. You can find your choice. It's not about wealth, money. It's more about if you enjoy, if you're happy with something that you have. And you don't need to overestimate what you don't have. No, that's okay.
There's a
I,
lot of the episodes of Founders when he's reading those biographies, they end with it. At his deathbed, he was not happy. He said, "I didn't know my kids. I didn't know my wife. I'm worth all these billions, but I worked the whole time. I never got to spend it. Never enjoyed it because I worked till the day I died." And that's not what most of us want. Even those guys ultimately didn't want it, but once you get on that train, it's hard to get off.
Yeah, nice. Mickey, I want to ask about AI. Today, it's hard to ignore this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And you have your agency, and I think all marketers implement, most marketers, I can say for all marketers implement AI because, yeah, once I spoke with a few agencies and they replied to me they don't believe in AI, don't implement. That's okay if something works for them. No, but I think in the future we will have three companies. The first company will implement AI, the second company will develop AI, and the third company will be obsolete. Who can leave the trade? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's hard ignore AI today. If something works for someone, that's okay. It's your choice. But I want to ask you how you implement AI or develop AI. Do you have some case studies or I don't know something that AI will lead you in a new direction?
Nothing too much yet. We're playing with it a lot. We're still a
Mhm.
little hesitant. I mean, I think it is the future, so we're certainly digging in. Frankly, I kind of hate it. I wish it didn't exist. I mean, I like the old way of doing things, but I also know that it's not my decision. It's going forward, so we're diving in with it. I think the best place for it right now is ideation. Coming with ideas for marketing plans, for blog post ideas, for social media help, that kind of thing is where it's just fantastic. Because as you know, a big problem with AI is hallucination. If you're trying to get facts out of it, it might just make up the facts. I asked Google Bard the other day. I said, "How did the Atlanta Braves do yesterday?" I said, "They won 5-4. Ronald Acuna had 2 home runs." And I looked, and they did win 5-4, but Acuna was 0 for 3. It made up the stats. I said, "Well, let me look at the score and let me see what it sounds like to talk about a baseball game," which was not factual at all. So we see a lot of that kind of stuff. So you have to be careful using it for writing because he'll just make up stuff, that sounds good. But for ideation, it is fantastic to come up with ideas and
Yeah.
blog post topics and social media. Because again, it'll give me 50 blog post ideas about this, and you can look and say, well, that one's bad, that one's bad, that one's bad. But hey, I still have 30 great ones in here, and I'm going to start using those. The other side I see a lot of is with images too. I think stock image sites are in big trouble. Like I can make whatever stock image I want in Midjourney just in a few sentences. Say I want a picture of a guy doing this, playing basketball or do whatever I want, and it's an image I can just use versus trying to find and buy the right stock image. So that'll be an interesting one too. So yeah, I think there's bigger societal concerns coming up in terms of deep fakes and that kind of thing. But agency wise, I think just generating content is there. I think the last one for us too is we employ a good number of copywriters, and I love them to death. I hope we keep them forever, but we won't because I think right now they still write better than AI, but that's not going to last long. And even then, I'll still employ them while I can. But at some point, our customers are going to say, "Why am I paying you to pay a person to write when ChatGPT can do it for free?" And we'll have no choice but to start using that to do our writing for us to a large degree. Which again, I don't like at all, but it's the future, and we're going to embrace whatever it needs to be, and that's how it's going to be. So I think short term, it's helping us a lot. I think it's going to help us get more done and we can be more profitable. But then I think market forces are going to kind of force us to scale back down a little bit because prices are going to fall on so much stuff just by the nature of competition, which is a good thing. So I think the next couple of years is going to be fantastic for us. And then after that, we'll just have to do what we have to do and see where it goes.
Yeah. By the way, I think ChatGPT can write much better than me. I'm a terrible writer, and I like to write. I love writing, but ChatGPT can beat my ass in one side, But ChatGPT can't collect data that I can,
Not yet.
So yeah, I usually collect data, write a bad copy, and then I ask ChatGPT, please
There
edit,
you go.
edit it,
Nice.
and it
Yeah.
works well, So yeah, we usually edit press releases on ChatGPT, many things on
Oh
ChatGPT.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Seth Godin was talking. He used it the other day. He sent out a survey and got like 5,000 responses, but they weren't just like check boxes. They were written responses. He didn't know how to deal with all that. So he threw all that in a ChatGPT and said, summarize all these responses. And it gave him a great summary of these many people think this, and this is kind of the sentiment. And, so it's got some fantastic uses for different ways. And I think we're just seeing the tip of what you can use it for. I mean, it's easy to say, write blog posts for us and all that, and it'll do that. But there's some really interesting things coming that'll be fun to see in the next few years.
Yeah. By the way, for someone who can think that they can use ChatGPT, I can tell you, you can, but you can't beat experts who know how to write, because I
Oh
found
yeah.
people who can write, they can estimate results from ChatGPT much better. If you have
Oh, for
experience with
sure.
writing, if you know how to create great content, then you can become a great prompt expert.
Yep.
Now, for example, if you write a prompt like how to play guitar, how to lose weight, I'm not sure you can get quality content.
Mhm.
But if you have experience, if you know how to write, if you know your topic, then you can use ChatGPT in the right way. I mean, like, to get great results. So yeah,
Yep.
it's important.
I see that in Midjourney. I don't know if you played with Midjourney before, but Midjourney is an image generating one that uses Discord, which is basically like a big chat room. And so what's neat in there is you can see the other prompts people using. Say, that's an amazing image. What did they say? And it's usually these big, long paragraphs of text where they describe the image. Where I say, picture of a man sitting reading a newspaper. And the good prompts are 10 times that long, where they talk about what focus length to use. And yeah, again, writing good prompts is a skill for sure, and the people that are good at it get tremendous results out of these tools. And I'm
Yeah.
not one of those people yet. So
Yeah, nice. Mickey, and I have my final question about the future. Can you forecast what kind of future will be in your vision? Because we have AI today, augmented reality can come soon from Apple headset. So technologies are growing fast. So any tips how to adapt to the possible future and how you can see this future?
yeah, the future is going to be interesting. I use VR almost every day for workouts and that sort of thing. And certainly Apple's AR looks amazing. I'm excited about AR more just because I think it's be helpful to, once you can take it out in the world, once it gets small enough like glasses, you can take it out and have it actually tell you what's going on. That'll be kind of cool. I think short term in terms of marketing, the best thing you can do is own your stuff. It's getting so easy just to give away your data, give away your stuff everywhere else. If you use Squarespace or Wix for your website, they own your website. You can't move it anywhere else. You're stuck with them. And if they go out of business or they don't like you, you're screwed. You're in big trouble. So we, for that, we tell people to use WordPress. WordPress, you can hold in your hand, you can download backups. It can be your site. And same with like marketing. If you're on social media, I mean, fantastic. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. If you have lots of followers on Facebook, do it. But where's Facebook in 5 years or 10 years? They're probably not very relevant at some point. But if you have an email list, email is not going anywhere. And it's a list you can download and you can hold in your hand. You can't take your Facebook followers and download a list and have them like they're Facebook's. But an email list is yours. So if you focus on things like WordPress and email, which are going to get old as time goes on, but they're the best way to own your own content and really control your future, not knowing what's going to happen everywhere else. At least I've got this stuff that's mine that no one else can take from me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Once I asked my son to search on Google new information, and he did it, but on TikTok. So, he doesn't know about Google a lot. He knows it exists, but he uses TikTok to search for new stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Mickey, it's a big pleasure to get on my show. I love this experience. You're so kind to share these valuable bombs. I need to go to an emergency room to consume all this information. Tell the best way how to keep learning from you, how to reach out to you, how to follow you.
Sure. You can find, so my blog is mickmel.com, mickmel.com. And I have a new podcast called stackingnowledge.com where I'm trying to it's forcing me to look at books again. So I interview folks on there to talk about books, just again, to force me to go back to those books again, like we talked about at the beginning, and consume that knowledge over and over. So mickmel.com or stackingnowledge.com.
Nice. Guys, you can find links in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. Love it. Guys, I recommend to anyone to follow Mickey on social media, to read his blog, because you can see a lot of valuable insights, and subscribe to his podcast, because if you want to become a better marketer, you need to do it. Again, love you. See you.